Hey there, it's Kyle Boone, aka Strong Jaw, staff writer at CBS Sports. Welcome to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel. Special guest today, Jerry Palm, is back with me. We're going to do some bracketology banter discussing all the latest bracket developments. Jerry Palm posted his latest bracket on Monday morning. A lot of new developments. The selection committee released its top 16 teams over the weekend. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some bubble implications, some Kentucky, some North Carolina, some teams going a multitude of different ways. Mr. Palm, first things first, let's start with the selection committee revealing on Saturday its top 16 teams in its bracket preview show. We had number 1 seeds Alabama, Houston, Purdue, and Kansas in that order. 2 seeds, Texas, Arizona, Baylor, UCLA, in that order. 3 seeds, Tennessee, Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State. 4 seeds, Indiana, Marquette, Gonzaga, and Xavier. Obviously, that was before Saturday and Sunday festivities. So things have likely shifted a little bit over the weekend, but any major quibbles with how the committee seeded things and any shifts that you saw from over the weekend?
I wouldn't say I have any, major problems. I would have, if I were on the committee, I would have had Purdue and Kansas the first 2, and then Alabama 3, Houston 4, and you pick whatever order you like for Purdue and Kansas. I think there's really a case for all 3 of those teams, except for Houston, because of the loss to Alabama, and the committee made a point of that. In fact, that was their reason for putting Alabama number 1. To them, the win over Houston, the best win any of those 4 teams has, was the separator. And for me, the separator would have been more, strength of schedule, high quality wins, and the fact that Alabama and Houston each have the 2 worst losses. They each have one of the losses among those top 4 teams. Purdue and Kansas do not have losses outside of Quad 1. Alabama's loss to Oklahoma is also a Quad 1 loss, but it was to a team that's not going to make the NCAA tournament. So that's just, it's a minor quibble. Alabama's an outstanding team. So, that they want to put them number 1, you can certainly see why that would be an attractive team to the selection committee.
Yeah, and I did think it was interesting, the order of the number 1 seeds, right? Because Alabama is behind Kansas and behind Purdue in terms of total Quad 1 wins. You have to look at the totality of the resumes. The way in which Alabama is winning, I think, probably boosts them in the metrics just a little bit. They beat Georgia over the weekend, 108-59. Their scoring margin in SEC play is just blowing teams out of the water. Now, they did lose last week to Tennessee. So I actually was a little bit surprised that they landed as the number 1 overall seed, but don't have any I don't think have any problems with how they ranked the seeding, at least in terms of the number 1 seeds. Let's get to the.
Sorry,
go ahead.
The thing to keep in mind about the metrics is the metrics are, especially the net, Ken Pom and Sagarin, are heavily influenced by margin of victory. They don't probably use margin of victory like scoring margin specifically. They use net efficiency. And the difference is that scoring margin is, point differential per game. Net efficiency is point differential per possession. And possessions are estimated with a formula because they're not in a box score. So, and then more sophisticated work is done with those things to get to these metrics. But no data point that you could find correlates better with those 3 metrics than scoring margin. So, that 50-point win for Alabama is a really nice cushion for their metrics in case they start taking a couple losses here.
Yeah, a lot of teams just doing it for the net, trying to boost their rankings just a little bit. Every little bit helps when it comes to metrics and things that the selection committee is looking at. So certainly something to keep an eye on. Let's talk about some of the number 1 seeds here, Palm. Purdue still has the 2nd most Quad 1 wins in college basketball. Kansas still leads college basketball with the most Quad 1 wins. But even with a win Sunday over Ohio State, Purdue has lost 3 of its last 5, and seemingly, I think, made the race for the number 1 overall seed at least more interesting. Now, Alabama was the number 1 overall seed by the selection committee. They are number 1 right now in your latest bracket. Where do you have the Boilermakers, and how do you see the way in which their resume stacks up with some of the other number 1 seed contenders.
Well, the nice thing about the committee giving us their 16 is it's a starting point for us.
Yeah.
So nothing happened over the weekend to change those 16, except for Tennessee's loss and Kansas State beating Iowa State. So that's 3 of the teams that were on the 3 line. And so they got shuffled around a little bit on that line. Nobody actually dropped off the 3 line because Indiana's 13. And if Indiana's 13, I mean, I think that that's probably the one team in the top 16 that it's the hardest to make a case for, but they really like them. And there's a lot to like with Indiana. But I would have thought that, maybe UConn would have been a better choice for the top 16 over Indiana. But anyway, so once they give you that, so my order for the 1 seeds is still the same as theirs, and it will be until somebody gives us a reason to change it. That did not happen this weekend. If Purdue had lost 2 instead of 3 of those games, they would be the number 1 overall seed. That's how close all of this is.
Okay, so that's good information to know. The next few weeks obviously could be really important, but the number 1 seeds, at least for now, pretty close. It's a pretty close race. You've got Purdue up there, you got Alabama up there, Kansas up there. A lot of teams still vying for that number 1 overall seed and number 1 seeds in general. It's going to come down to the wire here. Let's talk Kentucky and North Carolina. We've talked about bubble discussion in this bracketology banter segment for several weeks now. 2 teams that have been kind of bordering on the bubble. Kentucky, with its backs against the wall, gets 2 really important wins this week. They beat Mississippi State, and then they beat Tennessee for a second time, get the season sweep. Thought that was really important. Meanwhile, North Carolina loses to Miami. They lose to NC State, blow it late. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games now. Palm, can we just pencil Kentucky into the bracket and say, North Carolina, you're going to the NIT, or is it a little bit more complicated than that?
I would definitely use pencil with Kentucky.
Okay.
I took them off my bubble today because I have them in an 8-9 game, and I look at the rest of their schedule, and I think, and for me, the bubble is not just where you are in the bracket, but also what do you have left and how much damage it's going to do to you. So, the problem for Kentucky is I don't trust them to win the games that they should win, but if they win the game they should win, they're going to make the NCAA tournament. So I took them off the bubble. North Carolina just can't get out of its own way, can't get the win it needs to try and give the committee a reason to take them. And they probably need more than one of those wins at this point. They are 0-8 against Quad 1. Miami is just outside of Quad 1. So you could look tomorrow and it might be 0-9 because Miami's been floating back and forth in that group in and out of Quad 1. But, that's just not going to get it done. The record, by the way, is 0-6. That's the worst record for an at-large team against Quad 1. And that goes back to 1998. So, North Carolina is not so special that they're going to be able to get in. They're probably going to need not just 1, but maybe 2 Quad 1 wins down the stretch of this season. They have 2 left on the regular season. Conference tournaments in play as well. And those are neutral court games, so you don't have to be as highly ranked of an opponent to land in Quad 1. Plus, it's a win off your home floor. So those are both good things. Carolina's going to need to do something here down the stretch of this season that we have not yet seen through the first 4 months.
What a disappointment. What a disappointment. So much talent on this Carolina team. Armando Bacot, Caleb Love, RJ Davis, Leaky Black. Preseason number 1 Tar Heels on the verge of potentially missing the NCAA tournament. Definitely have work to do. 0 Quad 1 wins on their resume. As things stand right now, on the outside looking in of Jerry Palm's bracket. That's going to do it for us today for Bracketology Banter with Jerry Palm. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and go to cbssports.com. Check out Jerry Palm's latest bracket. Has a lot of recap from the weekend, some latest projections, how he sees things shaking out. Jerry, thank you for your time.
Talk to you next week.
Okay.